everybody. Answer me now. Give me ginger. Good morning. I'm very excited to be back at Kabafest for the second time. And for I want to say, this is your first time. How do you feel? How do you feel to be on this stage?
Is it good? Is this on?
Yes.
Okay, I think it's on.
I'm just pretending to know how to do this thing. You people know I don't know how to do this thing. Hello? 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 Okay, they're bringing another mic for you. It's not working. Hello?
Thank you. Okay. Yes. Yes, please.
Okay, so I want to say, this is
Mhm.
your first time at Kabafest.
Yes.
How does it feel to be here?
It feels good. So my dad used to work in Kaduna many years ago when I was a kid, and this is my first time, back in over a decade. Yes, so it feels really good. I think everyone has been so lovely. The environment is so calm. So I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm always excited to come back to Kaduna. So the reason why I think the reason why we're here today is to talk about your fantastic new novel, We Were Girls One. It's available in the bookstore already, so if you've not gotten the jokes on you. But anyway, like Ella said, I've been very privileged to actually have read this book before everyone else. And I just want to say that it's such a beautiful book, and thank you so much for writing it.
Thank you.
So,
Thank
okay,
you.
this is the sequel to Tomorrow I Become a Woman. How many of you have read Tomorrow I Become a Woman? Raise up your hands. Let me see before I will give $100 to you. Let me see. If you don't raise up your hand, let me do that again. It's your sticky potatoes. So everybody just raise their hand. So this is also available as well, but we're going to talk about this one. So like Ella said when she was inviting me to stage, you did accounting, you got a first class degree in accounting, you're even a certified chartered accountant, and now you're writing a book. So I want to know, when did you realize you wanted to pursue writing as a career instead of accounting and
I always say like I live multiple lives because I've always loved numbers. Like I always joke I'm a numbers person. I've always loved numbers, but then I've always loved literature because growing up, my dad used to read a lot, my mom also, and I just always as a kid when you ask your parents something and they will have an answer, and I used to be like, how does this person know this thing? And I realized that they were always reading, so I was like, me too, I want to read, you know, and dad used to buy me books a lot. And I remember when I've told this story before, I think you were there. When I was about 16, I'd gone to my dad again to buy new books because I just finished reading the ones he bought. And he was like, again, go and write your own, you know? And I told him then I told him I'll write when I have something to say. And that was it in my mind. I just enjoyed reading. I never thought I would become a writer. But then in 2015, during my MBA, I made a friend who was going through a very difficult situation, and I wanted to write about it. And it really bothered me because I had an argument with someone about it, a very good friend of mine, and he was saying the same things that people would say in church and older people would say, and I was like, you're a young person like me, how are you speaking like this, you know? And I told him I'm going to write about it. And he was like, "Hey, go and write about it." And, and so that's how the idea came. Initially, I thought I couldn't do it. But then but then I was like in between, I was job hunting. I know when you're job hunting, like you're waiting for an interview, you're doing this, you're doing that. So I was like, okay, I have some time. This was after my master's. I have some time. Do you know, why don't I just give this a shot? And now looking back, I always wonder like who was that person that thought she could just write a novel, you know?
look at you, you have two books now.
I
Like
know.
I don't have one book.
it's it's really like a dream, and I'm really grateful. And it took me, so even when I got the job, I just kept writing because I was so moved by this, and so that's how it started.
Do you ever think you're going to go back to like the numbers?
So actually, I still do number stuff by the side.
So
Yes,
anyway, I'm enlightening. I'm
I still,
enlightening.
because I don't think I'll ever stop loving numbers, right? There's certain, and but then again, I think it's not just about knowing the numbers, but being able to interpret the numbers so people can understand. I think one thing that writing has really helped me with is being able to like write great reports and things like that before I go into technical. But so I really still enjoy numbers, but then writing is that precious baby, that thing that when I feel stressed, I just want to write. Like it's like my safe space. Yes.
Thank you so much, Ira. Beautiful.
Thank
Okay, so in 2022, you published your debut novel, Tomorrow I Become a Woman. Everybody is talking about that book till today, by the way. So 1 year later, you've blessed us with a sequel, We Were Girls Once. So I'm curious, how different was the writing process for We Were Girls Once to that of Tomorrow I Become a Woman?
Ah, when I started writing, thank you. That's a great question, actually. So when I started writing, We Were Girls Once, I started writing it before Tomorrow I Become a Woman came out. Yes, because I'd read. So the thing is, like I said, I came in from the other side. I was an accountant, so I always used to like read interviews, like people that are published, like what's their life like, and because I also wanted to learn as much I could about the industry because I felt like I knew nothing, and so I used to see authors say things like, I used to read authors say things like, after their first book came out, they felt so different, and it made it really difficult to write the second one. And I was like, this might happen to me too. Maybe I should just start writing this thing before, because I already knew when I was writing Tomorrow I Become a Woman, I knew I wanted to write a sequel, but in a way that it will also be a standalone, which is what I've tried to do with We Were Girls Once. And I and so I had the idea, but then before my book came, before Tomorrow I Become a Woman came out, my granddad died, and it was a really tough time for me. And because I'd felt, after the pandemic I'd have time to see him, but then I was always like scared of like flying to see him in case I caught something and then he would get it. And so it was a really tough time. And I remember like writing really got me out of the dark space I went into. Like I paid for a co-working desk. I paid for a co-working desk, and I was like, because I'm an accountant, I was like, you spent this money, you must use it. So I would literally drive there every day and just write, and that was what really got me back to myself, and so the writing process was actually very strange in the sense that like clips would flash in my head like a picture. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's what this scene should look like. That's what that scene should look like. With Tomorrow I Become a Woman, I knew the story from the very beginning. I knew what I wanted to write. But Where Girls was like a journey, and it kept coming to me as I went along. Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of, sorry about your granddad.
Thank you.
So speaking of the writing journey, in Regal's want to explore the complex relationship dynamics between Ego, Zina, and Irife. For those of you who don't know, they are the daughters of Chinelo, Adugo, and Obianuju in the first book. So did the nature of their relationship change significantly from your initial plan during the writing process?
So I think yes and no. Yes, in the sense that I knew I wanted them to have spent some time apart and then come back together after a couple of years, like after a decade, which was the entire premise of the story. But then I wasn't sure about what form their relationship would take after that, right? It wasn't very clear to me. But as I kept writing, the characters kept revealing themselves to me. Like I felt like I knew Ego, right? I knew Zina. I loved writing
I
Zina.
have one question. How does that happen? Oh, writers always say this that the characters keep speaking to me. They keep revealing. Is it spiritual? What's going on?
I'm sure we sound like mad people, like we have voices speaking to us. But it's like I think I can only speak for myself, right? I think for me, it's as you're writing the characters, you're writing the dialogue. It gets to a point that like this character won't say this because they've said this before. So they take a personality and then they become like real people to you. And so that's how it's always been. That's how it's been for me at least. And so I got to know them and then I knew that Erife would. I'm trying not to give spoilers,
Don't give
but
spoilers. You have to buy the book.
I knew that Erife would do what she did because there was this pattern from when they were in university, and then there was also a quiet separation along the way, and I knew she would do that because she, and then also there's an emotional detachment that I've observed with doctors. My sisters are doctors, so they get to a certain point in the trade that you've seen so much death, you've seen so much that you're able to do certain things because you're able to emotionally detach yourself from pain. Yeah.
Please give her a very beautiful round of applause. Do they talk to you at night?
No, it's not that.
Just have to make sure.
It's not that bad yet.
Okay, so your novel takes us on a journey across Nigeria with scenes in Lagos, Onisha, even Kano as well, and then obviously the UK. So, what made these specific locations important to the story and the character's development?
Uh, Thank you.
My questions are just.
So for that's a very good question. The UK, I knew I wanted to write about. So I lived in the UK during my masters, and I visited, but then I wanted to write about what it feels like to be a foreigner in the UK. But then also, particularly during that period when they were preparing for Brexit, there was there was a there was like there was a palpable tension. You could feel it in the air, especially as an immigrant. You felt so unwelcome, and I wanted that to be what would spur Ego to make her decision. The conversations. I also wanted to explore, even though just a little bit, the dynamic, the relationship between the British media and the British public, and how the British media is able to basically control the public through their narrative and make the public do what they want them to do. And so that's how I chose the UK. So I felt like I knew that well enough. Then Lagos, no, they went to my mom went to Unilag, and so the girls go to Unilag in the story. And I really wanted to write about that. And also I worked in Lagos when I was like working at KPMG, and it was just stressful. And I remember, Lagos is a city that has to be experienced to really feel it. I knew that I wanted dinner to be hustling in Lagos, and I wanted Ego to move back to that sort of environment and be like, what is this, you know? And what else again?
Onisha.
Yes,
Yeah.
and yes, and obviously the filmmaking industry in Nigeria in particular really grew in the east before the move to the southwest, like Lagos. Like in the southwest, more for Yoruba films was more like Ibadan and all those places and Abeokuta, I think. But then for Igbos in particular, the east, like Onitsha, was where the you know, and I wanted Zina to have that training to go back there and really learn and really, try to hustle it out to make it as an actress.
Very lovely and deliberate. Love it. Kano. Oh, also Kano too. It was just a tiny. Was a wedding.
It was a wedding.
Yeah.
So that was actually
But why Kano? Have you been there?
no, actually.
You want to go? Let's put you on a train
I d-
to Kano right now.
I thought it was such. So I've read so much about Kano in books and things like that. So I haven't been there, but I thought it would be such a great place to set a wedding because where would people come from all over? And I thought Kano would be the perfect place.
Great. So speaking of ego in UK, I could see from reading the book that she struggles with loneliness.
Yes.
So you haven't lived abroad yourself. I mean, UK, Iowa right now. Is that something you find as a common experience for people who move? And looking at this from a broader perspective, what are your opinions on the Japa wave?
Wow, your questions are quite serious. I think so first of all, the loneliness part is very true. I think anyone that's lived abroad will tell you that there's a certain detachment you feel from your environment. You never really fully settle in. And it's something it's something I always wanted to write about because I really felt it when I lived in the UK. It's very different to visit, to see family, you see cousins, blah, 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 bye bye. It's very different. But then when you actually live there, you almost become a different person, and you crave that connection to home that you you never really feel like this is your home, and um, Ego and Zina have that conversation, like, oh, is this my country? And she's like, my dear, anywhere you are is your country. and and I think a lot of people will tell you that they really feel that disconnect, and so I wanted to write about that. The second question was
So what's your opinion on like
the Japa wave. The thing is, I'm trying to be very careful with my words. I understand why people move. As someone who's moved myself and come back and moved again, I understand this. I think Nigeria has so much potential, and there's just so much to do in Nigeria, but then there are also so many challenges, and and it takes a certain time, commitment and sacrifice to actually stick it out. And sometimes it gets to a point where, aside for a lot of people I know, it's like my years are passing and nothing is changing. What do I do? I need to do something for myself. I need to do something for my family. And I can't begrudge anyone that. So I'd say people should do what is best for them, but then should also be sure it's the right move. Because I've seen situations where people have moved abroad without any plan, any nothing, and they just think it's going to work. That's no, you're just literally moving from fry pan to fire. Because as in over there, they're like at least here, there's some options. You get what I mean? Over there, like the bills are, yeah, you know, like, and they just it's very easy to get into trouble or get on the wrong side if you're not careful. So I would say people should do what works best for them, but people should also be sure of their decision. And I do hope, like everyone else, that one day Nigeria will be a country where we can all live and we can all come back. Because there's no place like home. Just being back, I just feel so happy.
welcome back? Okay, so since my questions are too serious, I said let me ask you. Let me
Go
ask you
ahead.
about music. So in your book, I noticed that in both books, actually, you use music as a narrative tool to transport readers to a specific time and place. In Tomorrow I Become a Woman, it was Marvin Gaye's "Let's Get It On." In We Were Girls Once, it's "Love Me Jeje, Love Me Tender." You also did something with Cisco Stonk song back in the days.
Yes.
So why did you choose to do this?
Um, I think music has a way of transporting people. There's something about music; it's so powerful. You feel it. It leaves a mark in your memory that someone just has to press that button and you're back there. And I always say that you ask someone, "What are you doing in 2001?" People are like, I don't know, Jerry. But play a song like Cisco song. Once you play that song, this song, they will now tell you what they were doing, who was beside them, who was by this corner. This one was there in the corner. I was talking to one babe. I've not forgotten, but you know, and and that's why I love using music, because I don't think anything else is able to have that sort of effect on people. And so, because then you feel nostalgic, you remember, and I think memory is such a strong tool. Yeah, so that's why I use Cisco, I use Marvin Gaye, I use Craig David. I still remember the first time I heard Craig David's album. It was in my bachelor uncle's apartment, and he had that, like that. He just got that CD and he played it and played it and played it, and I just never forgot that album.
What's your favorite song right now? If I check your Spotify, what is your top most played?
Oh wow, that's a good question. Asking really serious questions, oh.
Is it serious? What's our favorite song?
So right now I'm actually trying to write, and when I'm writing, I tend to listen to a lot of classical music and a lot of OSTs. So I don't really have a favorite song right now, unfortunately. So I listen to a lot of OSTs, like maybe by Lihiri, or some of the Mozart classicals, or um so, like, so I don't have a better answer for
Okay,
you
you are
right
lucky.
now.
At the beginning, you are giving me one song. I thought you to sing for us, like
Hey,
do a
thank
performance,
God.
but you escaped. Congratulations. So I want to talk about the movements in your novel. You seamlessly integrate like real world movements into it. There's Me Too and then NSAS definitely. So to capture the global significance of these events, how much research did you do into the background of these movements and how they played out?
Thank you. I think so. Writing We Were Girls was also different because I lived through a lot of the events that happened in there, right? Like Tomorrow I Become a Woman was like past, so I had to really research. So this I had to research, but then a lot of it I remembered myself, right? So, but then I tried to be sure. So I read a lot of articles, both local and international. I watched videos, I listened to songs as well, to really, to really, to really feel that moment and to be able to incorporate it in the novel, because I really believe that we're all political beings. So a lot of people say, oh, I'm not political, I can't, but you can't detach yourself from what is going on around you. We're all political. No, even if you want to hide under a rock, it will meet you there, you know and so that's why I really wanted to write about these things, but in a way that the characters are seamlessly living through this time, because we all did, right? One way or the other, it's shaped our approach to things, right? It's shaped how we think about things, even how people talk about consent and certain things like that. They're shaped by these events, how we talk about even the political landscape now, protests and things like that. They're shaped by a lot of these events, and I really wanted to write about that.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm glad you did write about them in your book. Very
Thank you.
lovely. So as the story unfolds, We Were Girls Once, we see one of Ego's sisters gradually become estranged from the family. And on Twitter, a lot of young people are discussing things like this. So I think a few weeks back, Tunde Onokoya's dad was talking about he didn't know what chess really meant and all that. And look at what he's doing with chess today. So a lot of people took that up and were talking about things their parents have done that they did not like and they might never forgive them for. There was one girl that was playing tennis. She said she was supposed to travel abroad for one scholarship. And her dad said, "You're not going because the girls there, they are wearing mini skirts. So I'm not going to allow you to
Wow.
go." So
Wow.
I want to know your opinion. Do you think people disconnecting from their families is gradually becoming a thing? And how do you think it's going to play out in Nigeria?
I don't. I think people. I think the thing now is we have social media to discuss all these things. People have always like gotten up and left home or disconnected from their families. Now we won't have phone. We didn't. Someone will just disappear. Oh, this is my uncle. He traveled abroad and he just didn't contact anybody. Or you get. So I think there's nothing new under the sun. I think social media has just kind of put a spotlight on some of these things. And also people are speaking up more for themselves and everything. I'm someone that really believes in family because I come from a large family and we're quite close. But then I also understand sometimes why people feel the need to disconnect, for several reasons. Trauma, um, sometimes I know abusive situations, So we can't really say do this or don't do this or don't do that this or do that, right? I think every situation is very different and we have to speak to every situation specifically. And so my general opinion is more people are definitely going to do what they feel is right, and more people are definitely understanding understanding abusive signs and fighting back and speaking up, right? But then I also think a lot of parents did what they thought was best, right? And And as I get older, right, honestly, my mom had me at 25, right? I'm older than my mom was when she had me. I'm like, how did she do it? So I really like empathize with my parents now, the older I get. So I really on like even things I disagree with. I have a lot more empathy, so I try not to judge them as harshly as I did when I was younger. I like they're not perfect, and I think it's the same for a lot. Like in Tunde's situation, right? Especially from everything he shared about his family background, they grew up dead poor, and it's a kind of situation where people like that they think the only way out, obviously, is education. Because I mean, Tunde is what one of how many a lot of people play chess, a lot of people play drafts, right? My grandparents used to live in Ibutemeta. We used to have those people that will bring out their this thing and sit down, right? He could have easily become someone like that, right? But then he's different. So I understand why his father was, apprehensive that he would just waste his life because he wanted better for him. He felt the only way out was through education, right? Times have changed and things have changed, social media and all these things. And so there are many opportunities that our parents didn't even have access to, or even if they didn't have knowledge of. So I think people should just give people grace and give their parents grace as well.
All right, thank you. Thank you. So we're going to have a little book reading right now. I want you to read page 42 to that place I whispered to you before, 43, from Any Boy.
Okay. Any boy. Chidiadi was the first to make me realize there was something wrong with my family. How many brothers and sisters do you have? He asked in primary two, just before the rainy season came with heavy storms and chilly winds. After our excursion to Marina to find Auntie Chinelo, Zina and Erife had been placed in different classes. We needed to learn to make friends with others. Chidiadi was taller than me, tallest boy in my class. It was recess and we all gathered by the swings. Two. I have two sisters, I replied, through the space where my front teeth had been, thinking of my twin baby sisters who were still learning to talk. I glanced around the playground for Zina and Erife. Any boy? He asked, his thick brows coming together. I shook my head no. He drew a sharp breath, his eyes widening and his mouth taking an O shape. And when his friends looked over with curious faces, he waved them over. Come and hear what she said. She has no brother, only two sisters. I have two sisters too, one of his friends said, smiling sheepishly and kicking his foot in the sand. But you're a boy, it's not the same, he said. How is it not the same? I asked. Every family should have a boy. That is what my daddy says. Well, your daddy is a liar, I retorted and stuck out my tongue. My daddy is not a liar, he screamed, before shoving me so hard I toppled in the sand, tasting the dust in the space between my teeth.
Thank you very much, Aiwanose. So I have a question from this chapter. So the concept of family is constantly evolving. In the past, having a son was seen as crucial. So do you believe modern families are placing less emphasis on gender right now?
Um, that's a good question again. So growing up, that part of the novel actually was inspired by my personal experience. I come from a family of five sisters and a brother. So five girls and and a son. And so growing up, every time when we were still just girls, every time people would be like, "Do you have any brother?" And me, I was always affronted by it, like, what's wrong with that? And so but I do think, actually, I think there's several factors at play. One, people are no longer thinking of having large families because of economy. You have to afford to send your children to school. So that's a factor. So that's the factor. But I also think people are evolving, and society is evolving to the point where people are realizing that children are a blessing, male or female, and you shouldn't place an emphasis on either gender. Of course, there will still be people that believe that you should just there'll always be people that will place an emphasis on male children just because of the kind of society we live in, right? But I think it's getting better. I think it's evolving. I think I'm seeing more people. Like for example, my cousin has two kids, two girls, and nobody's like harassing her. Or nobody's saying all these things, and I think obviously there'll always be that occasional person. But so I think it's getting better, but I think there's also still a long way to go in terms of conversations and everything. Yeah.
Okay. So you've written two books, both literary fiction. So I want to know, are you thinking of writing any other genre aside literary fiction?
Ah, So the thing is, I actually enjoy so many genres, right? Like for me, I enjoy I enjoy romance. I enjoy fantasy. Like
I
I
want to say, don't
really
write romance, so
no, I'm not going to
you will
write
break
romance.
our
No,
hearts with the
don't
way
worry.
the way you write it to be like this.
I don't worry. I'm not going there. Don't worry. But I enjoy fantasy. I enjoy, I actually do read like a lot of genres. But so right now, what I'm working on is literary, but it's also dystopian.
Dystopian.
Yes, it's also dystopian. It's
Okay.
also dystopian. So I'm really excited about it because it's very different from like anything I've written before. But so I don't know when I'm going to be done. But I'm really excited because it's just different, and I'm happy about that. Yeah.
Okay, I'm happy for you too.
Thank
That's
you.
nice. I would love to, see the book, but let's not. We'll talk about
Don't
that
worry.
later. Okay, so just to close this, I would like you to read from your favorite parts of We Were Girls Once.
Oh,
Any part you want to read, bless us.
okay. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
I think I love Zena so much that I do want to read from Zena's part. So please just give me a second. So I'm going to read from page 265. It's actually one of like I actually enjoyed writing this because it was so funny. Um, I dragged Ego along to our monthly meeting, our monthly gathering, because I did not want her moping at home by herself. Remember not to take anything too seriously. These women are all actresses, they're different. I told Ego I'll be near Terry's house. It was her turn to host. And most importantly, don't judge. I've told them I'm bringing my friend who's just returned to the country. It's why they've allowed you to come. They're curious about you. I haven't just got back. As far as most people here are concerned, you've just got back. You were there for over 10 years. You're a proper IJGB, I said. Uh-huh. Ego explained as we drove through the gilded gates of Chary's home. A uniformed policeman saluted us as we passed. Is this your friend Royalty or what? I laughed, moving towards the car park. No, she's married to a former footballer. Tyree's husband had played for a club in the first division league in Europe until an unfortunate injury had ended his career. And then he'd returned home with his millions to live like a king at the official age of 30. But his wife was 35, and we all knew he was older than she was. Why do footballers like actresses and beauty queens so much? Ego said as we walked the distance to the house, her eyes grazing over the sports cars and motorcycles. Luxury wasn't something that shocked her. She'd known it for a decent part of her life. Shh, someone will hear you. Stewards greeted us at the door and in the corridor leading to the living room, brandishing trays of small chops, puff puff, stick meat, peppered snails, samosa, and plantain balls. Tari loved to put on a show in her outlandish yet amiable war with Cassandra for primacy. Cassandra was married to a retired British vice chairman at an oil company, a man old enough to be her father. He had a family in the UK, a daughter and a son young enough to be Cassandra's siblings. Cassandra lived an independent life. Her husband did not breathe down her neck or question where she went or who she was with. She shuffled her time between London, New York, and Lagos, and she was already in the process of applying for British citizenship. Often, the other women deferred to her with grudging respect that she'd managed to climb her way to a pinnacle. Ah, you're here, my darling, Tyree said, rising from a gold plated chair in a Thailand sequin dress that shimmered against the chandelier lights. I've never seen such garish furniture, my God, Ego whispered beside me. Is anyone else here? I asked, but just before we exchanged air kisses. No, you know they're always late, Tari responded, rolling her eyes. Then turning shining eyes to Ego, she said, is this the friend from Britain? It's so lovely to meet you, darling, she said, and traded air kisses before I could respond. I was ignored as we waited for the others, Tari's full attention taken by Ego as she hounded her with questions about the UK and the places she'd been to. I love going to Harrods. That's where I get all my clothes, nowhere else, except the Italian designers, of course, I heard her say. I smiled, amused by Atari's effort at foreignness, the extra R that adjoined her high pitched tone, the unnatural way she laughed. I wouldn't tease her in front of Ego. Cassandra arrived next, a high priced weave brushing the top of her bottom. I had to go for brunch with my husband and his friends, she explained. Zara rushed in behind her, spotting apologies in her American accent as always. And as always, Marv was the last to join us. I'm so sorry, guys. I was at the seminar, she said, pushing her designer handbag into a corner by her side, like she expected it to be snatched from her. Her name was Marvelous, assigned to her by her very religious mother, but she had shortened it to Marv because Marvelous was simply not cool enough.
Thank you so much, Aiwanose. If you want to know more, you definitely should get the book. So it's time for Q&A from the audience. If you have any questions, she's here to answer you. Just do like this if you have any questions. Okay, we have two here. Three. Who's with the mic, please? Okay.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you. Mine is not a question, rather a comment. First, I appreciate the author's energy. As we can see, she is cool enough. Yes, she is beautiful and well educated. Okay. Yeah. Because, yes, she doesn't look much older than me, who is in my mid 20s. So, my comment is my comment is I appreciate her open-mindedness, the way she portrays the locations, although I've not read the book, but particularly her representation of Kano as a location for wedding, because sometimes writers fall into this stereotype and bias. They tend to represent places they've not been to in a biased manner, such that writers who have not been to Kano or Kaduna will tend to represent it in a bad picture. There are many examples, but I won't list the example. But for her, who has represented Kano as Kano is a tourist location. Myself, I studied at Bayero University, Kano. I know about Sabongeri and other places that are cosmopolitan, where you find people from different places, Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, converge together for the sake of business. And it has always been historical. For a long period of time in history, people have been to Kano, not only from Nigeria, but from other countries, because Kano is a business destination, it's also a tourist attraction. So thank you so much. I won't say anything again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, mine is actually a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to be here as quick as possible to follow the book chat because I just started following recently on Instagram because I found out that you study accounting. I studied accounting as well. Um, the question is, what is your process? I have been trying to write books. I am a performance poet, but I've been trying to write a book, like three different occasions, and the process just stops. Like it just begins and then it stops. And I have publisher friends who are like, you've not sent anything in. So the question is, what's your you already said stuff about the kind of music you listen to when you want to write, but what's the entire process?
Thank you. First of all, it's great to see another accountant in the room. Hi. I think so. Actually, how I write is first of all, I have a decent idea of the story I want to tell. It might not. It's never extremely detailed, but I have a very decent idea, and I spend a lot of time outlining because I find that when you're writing a story or when you're writing a book, sometimes you get lost, and going back to my outline kind of always gets me on track. So I find that outlining helps me a lot. So when I say outlining, I would write first I'll start with writing breaking down the story into chapters, like writing a summary of what each chapter should be. Then I go through and flesh it out in detail, down to scenes. Sometimes I don't do it at once. Sometimes I do it as I go along, right? But all through, I kind of have an idea of what I should be doing at this point. And then when I'm stuck, I go back to my outline. I spend a lot of time breaking down my outline into scenes. Okay, what would this person say here? Then what will happen after this? And just kind of telling myself the story again and getting myself back on track. And then sometimes if I struggle with a particular aspect of the story, I try to read a book that does that thing I'm trying to do well. Yes. So if I feel like maybe I'm struggling with a particular conversation or dialogue, I go read a book that has really good dialogue. If I'm struggling with a character that's very complex, I go read a book that has a complex character. So just something to keep me like, oh, this is, this is it, this is what it should look like, because it stays, it subconsciously it influences your writing, and then you find that it frees you because someone else has done it. So you should be, I can do it too. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Hi. I
Hi.
so enjoyed reading your book, and thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Thank you.
Wonderful job.
Thank you so
Congratulations.
much.
And I'd like to read it again. So I encourage everybody to do so. I'm just kind of piggybacking on what you said. And to the gentleman that wants to write and keeps getting stuck, I think that reading is really one of the best ways to become a writer. So read a lot and do everything that she's saying you should do, but also read books that are even different from what you're trying to write. And the more you read, the better you get. Because here's what is going to happen. You're going to notice things that work for you in other books, and you try to find out why you like this, why you kept reading this, and why you kept going on. And then you are going to basically avoid the things that you don't like and try to write the kind of book that you would like to write. So thank you, I
Thank
want to say.
you.
Thank you so much.
We have someone there, just the last two people, and then we have to move.
Okay, hello, good morning. I want to say Odafen. Honestly, I just want to commend you because it's like I realized that, yeah, when you said you listen to classical music, you discuss Mozart. I said, Mozart? Because it's like, to me, honestly, you look younger than somebody who had, had the privilege of listening to Mozart. You understand what I'm saying? So I know certainly with a first class in accounting, it entails everything you intelligent. Fact remains, just like my younger brother there who said that he wants to write, to be honest, before you can be able to write, you just have to read. Read and read and read. And it shows in you. Because it's
Thank you
like
so much.
the very moment you started, answering her difficult questions, it shows that you are open. You are just open-ended. It shows that yes, you've read a lot. Your father has bought you so many books. That's exactly what I'm doing to my daughter. In fact, I didn't come to book festivals without
Daddy of the year.
without, without buying books for her. She will always tell me, "Daddy, don't forget my books," and I will buy as much as I can. And I must be honest with you, as a professional accountant, I'm happy because it's like as I'm seated here, I'm a professional engineer too. In fact, I'm not in the literary sector, but certainly I don't think I think since this Kabafest started, I've always been in attendance. That's the honest truth. Yeah. So I just want to commend your effort and don't relent, keep writing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Just one last person. She's over there. If you have any more questions, you can hijack her in the book signing room and the bookstore.
Firstly, I would like to commend your confidence.
Oh, thank
You're
you.
a phenomenal woman, and I love that about you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So, my question is, do you think Nigerian writers are more revered in Nigeria or abroad? Because I've been writing since I was 9, from nonsense to things that make sense, but I haven't really gotten the motivation and support I need, and that has really hampered my creativity. So my question is, how do you deal with that? I don't know if it's just in the northern Nigeria because I've not been to other places, but here writers aren't really revered as they should be. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm I'm really sorry that you've not been, encouraged, and I understand it. To be honest, I'll tell you something funny. So my dad told me to write, but he never wanted writing to be my career. And so when I tried to go to Iowa for the MFA, my uncle came to see me because apparently my dad had told him. And my uncle came to see me, and my uncle said, "I heard you want to be poor." And I said, no, I'm writing. So then it's the same thing. you know so because I think there's there's this perspective, that writers are poor, like, we don't, and in many ways I would say writing isn't as lucrative as certain other careers. So it's understandable why people try to shoo people away from it, right? In terms of respect, I would say Nigerian writers are respected. I can tell you for free that across Africa, even at the Iowa Writers Workshop, we've had so many Nigerians. And at a point, it was like, other countries should enter. So they started reducing the number of Nigerians. They're just beefing us. But I think we produce such great literature. Our works are so easy to read, so relatable. Just so the writing is so good. Like, we're really, like, in fact, I remember one Sudanese writer won a competition where they were Nigerians. I was like, I cannot believe I beat the Nigerians. Like, it's such a big deal to actually beat Nigerians in a writing competition. That's how revered we are. So I'll encourage you to not stop writing, right? I think people will always comment. People will always say, like, if I was listening to people, I can promise I wouldn't be here right now, because everyone has told me that, even at Iowa. So I made some friends who are at the business school, and they're like, "See, do you know how much you make as an accountant in this country? Please just put your writing aside. Focus." Focus, like, go and write your CPA. So I'll tell you, keep writing, and keep every opportunity you see out there, take it. So I wouldn't say, so I don't know what you're studying now, what path you're taking now. But if you're maybe studying something else, I wouldn't say don't do that, right? Because I was writing while I was working. I know several other writers who have different careers as well. I think the author of Shikidi is, I think, well, later Labi, I think he's an engineer at Google, right? So it doesn't stop you from doing anything else, right? And so don't let anyone try to limit you or tell you you can't do this or you can't do that. Keep going. And I think one great thing about the internet is there are, like, so many opportunities, so many, like, online competitions and things like that. Keep entering, keep putting yourself forward, just keep putting yourself out there, and you never know what will happen. Yeah.
Thank you so much, I want to say. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you.